You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're listening to Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Locked On Mets is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube, you're going to be listening on YouTube for the next couple of days. For those of you who aren't aware, I have been on a road trip going through the Mets minor leagues, checking out games in Brooklyn, Binghamton, and I'll be in Syracuse on Tuesday. And because of that, we're going to be audio only through Wednesday, and they'll get back to normal video on Thursday and Friday. Now, when it comes to the show today, we have to talk about a dominant performance by the New York Mets as they were able to once again win a series. That's 7 series in a row as they beat up on the Phillies with an absolute blowout of a win on Sunday. Going to talk about that game and that series in the first segment today. Then in the second segment, there is a big discussion that has to be had when it comes to the Mets roster. It's time for cuts down to 26, which means it should be time to wave goodbye to Robinson Cano. But what if the Mets don't do that? Where will they go? Who will they cut? Who will they option? A lot of different ways this can unfold today, so I'll get into that. Then in the final segment, I want to talk about some of the games I've watched when it comes to the Mets minor leagues over the last couple of days. Saw a game in Brooklyn on Saturday, and then saw the Binghamton Big Three of Ronny Mauricio, Francisco Alvarez, and Brett Baty on Sunday. So we will close this show talking about that. For those of you who don't know, I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. All right, so Friday night, I was at the game. You can listen to that podcast I recorded after it for the incredible combined no-hitter. That gave the Mets their first win of the series. In Game 2, things did not go as planned, but Taijuan Walker did pitch really well coming off the injured list. Gave the Mets 5 scoreless innings. He allowed 2 hits, walked 1, struck out just 1, but again, looked really good out there. In the bottom of the 5th, the Mets got an early lead in that game. Francisco Lindor hit a ground ball in the infield that Brandon Nimmo came on and scored, had a play at the plate. And Nimmo, when he scored that run, he jumped out of the dive and spiked his helmet. And it was just this arrogant, we're winning type energy. And even though the Mets lost that game, that moment stood out to me because this is a team that is starting to really believe in themselves. So even though Adam Ottavino gives up a pair of runs and the Phillies lineup was able to come around and win a game because Kyle Schwarber hit a home run, Odubel Herrera had an RBI double, and then Sean Reed-Foley gave up a home run to Rhys Hoskins, and that game got away from the Mets, and the offense just didn't come together for one night on Saturday. That singular moment to me stood out because it showed that this is a Mets team that believes they should win every night, that has a us against the world mentality, and that is going to result in a lot of victories. And then we saw on Sunday it manifests itself in a blowout victory, and it was not the type of victory I think any of us were expecting going into that game, because going in, the big headline was, all right, Max Scherzer has a chance to give the Mets their 7th series victory in a row. Maybe it's going to be a 2-0 game, and Scherzer's going to go 8 innings. Well, Max Scherzer actually gave up 3 home runs in this game, and it didn't matter. He gave up 3 home runs and 4 runs, and it did not matter. Kyle Schwarber hit 2 home runs. I will say, Sunday Night Baseball, live game, national television, could the baseballs have been juiced? I don't want to speculate, but I did just say that into a microphone. So take that for what it is. Even with all that, though, Max Scherzer still had 9 strikeouts. He walked just 1. Still got the Mets through 6. Wasn't his best outing, but it was good enough when your team is going to go out and put up a 10 spot against this Phillies team, particularly the bullpen late. The Mets just kept on adding runs all game long. It's what we've seen from this team. Everybody contributes. You look at the lineup. the first batter through the eighth batter, everybody but the catcher, which is kind of the running theme this season, everyone got hits, everyone scored runs. I mean, when does that happen? 8 different guys scored a run in this game. And to go through the breakdown of what happened, the Mets were trailing 1-0 because Kyle Schwarber hit an early home run. They take the lead back in the second. Eduardo Escobar and Dominic Smith each singled to put 2 runners at the corners for Starling Marte. Marte grounded out, but got another RBI, just continues to rack up those ribbies. Then Luis Guillorme got himself one. He narrowly missed a home run, so close, hit the base of the wall. It's pretty funny, actually, in a following inning when Francisco Lindor was talking to the ESPN broadcasters. He was saying, yeah, it looked like he got one. I thought it was out, but then I remembered who hit it. It was kind of a funny moment there as Lindor acknowledged the lack of power that Guillorme packs, but in that instance was able to drive in the run with a double, so the Mets were able to erase Schwarber's first home run, but then his second home run of the day once again gave the Phillies a lead, this time a 3-2 lead as he hit a 2-run shot, but once again, the Mets answered back, and once again, it was Eduardo Escobar and Dominic Smith. Escobar singled, and then Dom doubled him home. He then came through again in the 5th inning. Dominic Smith would later drive in Francisco Lindor and Jeff McNeil with the single. McNeil and Dom both had huge days, each of them getting 4 hits and just coming through in clutch spot after clutch spot. There was a 3rd run that scored in that same inning on a wild pitch. So a 3 spot in that 5th inning. The Mets scored another one. Pete Alonso had an RBI single in the 7th. Starling Marte then tacked on 2 more with a hit of his own in the 7th. Jeff McNeil drove in another run in the 8th inning. As I said already, everyone scored, everyone hit except for Nido. But when you have a lineup as potent as the Mets lineup right now, who cares if your catches are hitting? It really doesn't matter. I should also acknowledge, just a complete side note, but on the bonus edition I did on Friday going into Saturday, where I talked about the Mets and the no-hitter, I was going through the lineup, and I said that James McCann did not contribute, and there was a commenter on YouTube that pointed out that he caught the no-hitter. I was only talking about offensively. 100% correct. James McCann absolutely contributed more than anyone that night when it came to the completion of that no-hitter, and that's what I'll say this year. Again, the way that the Mets have been functioning as a team, there is no real pressing concern when it comes to your offensive production from your catchers. These are 2 very good defensive catchers that are managing one of, if not the best pitching staff in baseball right now. They deserve a bit of the credit for all that. And so if the Mets don't get much of anything except for a home run here, a home run there, a sac fly here, a sac fly there from these guys offensively, it really doesn't matter. But when you're the Mets and you're going out and you're winning every series you're playing in, you're scoring 10 runs, and you're embarrassing the Phillies in 2 of these 3 nights, one with a no-hitter, another one where you score 10 runs, how can you complain about anything going on with this Mets team right now? There's just no way to do it. There really is no way to poke any holes in what's going on. You have every single starting pitcher contributing. It seems like there's always another guy each day in the lineup that is finding a way to make things happen. And that's why decisions can be really difficult to make when it comes to the roster, as this team has functioned extremely well with a 28-man roster, and now they're going to have to go down to a 26-man roster, which means that hopefully Robinson Cano is about to be cut. Otherwise, we're going to see a Met that's been a huge part of what's happened so far this season end up losing their roster spot and either options in the minor leagues or maybe DFA'd. So I want to discuss that and the decision that has to be made in just a minute. Before we do that, though, summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. And Built Bars are the perfect snack to take on your family vacations. You throw them in your bags and your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you're fueled for your summer adventures. And the best part is Built Bars are healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bar, now you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that with Built Bar, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy doing it. And speaking of the Puffs, have you tried those yet? the protein-infused marshmallows. We're going crazy for the puffs. They come in crazy flavors like the banana cream pie and even the churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro that only comes with 140 calories? Sign me up for that 7 days a week, right? If it's not enough flavor for you, then you might want to try the mix box, where you can try a little bit of everything. You can get 12 flavors of the bars and puffs and see what you like best. Go to Built.com right now. Check out all of the different flavors available, and make sure you use our promo code LOCK15. You're going to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. So the New York Mets have to decide what to do with their roster at this point. And if you've been listening to this show the past couple of weeks, I am all the way out on Robinson Cano. Really, if you've been listening since the offseason, you would know that I've been pretty spot on with my analysis. Not to toot my own horn, but here I am going to do it again. You look at Jeff McNeil, you look at Carlos Carrasco, you look at Francisco Lindor. These were all guys I thought would bounce back. You talk about some of the additions that I hoped would happen and the way we're seeing a Starling Marte help this team. I was right more than I was wrong. But if there was one place where I was loud wrong, and I mean extremely loud wrong, and this is where I own my own shortcomings as a host of this show, it was believing in Robinson Cano. I thought Robinson Cano was going to have value for this Mets team. I never thought he should have got the playing time that he's been getting. If you listen back, I always said that Dominic Smith and Robinson Cano should split time, and I even wanted Dom to have a little bit more playing time than Robinson Cano. But I did think that in a limited role, he could have some value for this Mets club. But what we've seen so far is he has looked completely lost. Completely. He does not give this team anything other than veteran leadership, I guess. And maybe Buck Showalter values that, and maybe he has more of a pull in that clubhouse than I think he does. But I look at this team right now and where they're at, and I don't see his function on this roster whatsoever. Defensively, what does he do for you? He's 39. Offensively, the guy is chasing like crazy. He looks like he's guessing up there. It seems like he can't even catch up to the fastball. So are the Mets really going to continue to keep this guy rostered just because you don't want to eat the money? Because the money's a sunk cost. I've heard before, there was a saying that I heard in, I think it was an econ class I took in high school, not a saying, a theory, that people, when they go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, right, they want to stuff themselves because they want to get their money's worth. But the reality is the money is already spent. There's no reason to make yourself sick. Eat what you want to eat, because you're going to pay your $10 to get into that buffet, and you're not going to get any money back by shoving your face. So what you're really doing is making yourself sick for no reason. That's what I think this Robinson Cano situation is at this point. The money's a sunk cost. It is what it is. He's getting $20.25 million this year and next year from the New York Mets. The Mariners are eating the other, $3.75 of it. And if you hear a car just beep right now, that's because I got kicked out of my hotel room for talking too loud at 10 o'clock at night. So I'm sitting in a car recording this version of Locked On Mets. I'm telling you, as much as I've enjoyed my minor league road trip that we're going to talk about a little bit more in just a minute here in the final segment, the technological difficulties have me just so homesick to get back to my office with my real computer where I can start to make the content that you're used to here. But this is dedication, folks. You're hearing it right now with the honk of the horn. Where was I? Oh, I was talking about Cano being terrible. At this point, to me, that buffet cost, right? You already spent the money on it. It's there, okay? Robinson Cano, as bad as he looks like this year, what's it going to look like next year? Are you really going to just keep running him out there? Do you really think that there's anything that he is going to do that's really going to help this team? And I get that there is the notion that because Luis Guillorme or Dominic Smith has options, you can keep everybody part of this team for now because you never know what happens and injuries pop up. But I'm telling you right now, The Mets have a guy who's not on the active roster, not on the 40-man roster, and Daniel Polka, who I think could have better at-bats than Robinson Cano. And you say, well, yeah, does he play second base? Who cares? Because Cano can barely play second base at this point. And Nick Plummer is on the 40, and he's going to give you a better at-bat than Robinson Cano. And just go down the line. Brett Baty, who I saw today, certainly could give you a better at-bat if he's called on mid-season. So I look around and I just don't see the downside in cutting him. I don't see the downside at all. Because if you cut him, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Some other team might actually decide to pick him up, and maybe they have the at-bats to give him, and by the end of the year you say, oh, maybe Cano could have possibly figured it out if you give him enough time. This is a team that has World Series aspirations and certainly has aspiration to win this division, and I just don't see Cano as a part of that. And I see Dominic Smith go 4 for 4 today with 3 RBIs, and so you're really going to option him or trade Dom for a reliever just so that you can hang on to Robinson Cano for a little longer just in case? Why? Are you really going to option Guillorme, who's been getting a lot of playing time for this team? Because I think Buck Showalter likes having a really good defensive second baseman out there with Lindor out short, especially in these days when he wants to give Cano a blow. You put McNeil in left field, you put Guillorme at second base. Your team is exquisite defensively, and Guillorme is giving you good at-bats. He's walking, he's getting on base. Tonight he almost goes yard. You're going to option him? He doesn't deserve that. He doesn't deserve to lose his spot. Who has been more of a positive player for this Mets team this year? Is it Louis Guillorme or is it Robinson Cano? Makes no sense. The only other option that's on the table is the one that I said going into the year because I didn't think that Travis Jankowski was going to make this team. He did make the team because they had the 28-man roster. So he was the original extra guy. So if the Mets want to DFA Travis Jankowski, that could be what they do here. And because they had Jeff McNeil, and because Mark Canha and Starling Marte can play center field, and because Dominic Smith could get some time and left again, they would technically be covered to let go of Jankowski and go with Cano. And to me, that is the only way that Cano is on this roster that it makes sense to me. Because I just can't see any scenario where I'm going to feel that the Mets were justified to remove Dom or Guillorme. And Jankowski has been a good fourth outfielder for you. He brings you speed. He's been a better at-bat than Cano. And he just serves a better function on this team right now. But I would understand that move. If the Mets had to go one way, to me, it's got to be either Cano or Jankowski. But it should be Cano. Just rip the Band-Aid off and get it over with. Anyway, because I'm sitting in this car, or I am sitting in this car recording because I am on a minor league road trip, and I want to tell you about that, some of my experiences. So we're going to get through that. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Before we do, though, I want to tell you about BetOnline.net, which is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so on Saturday, after having watched the no-hitter on Friday night, I took the drive over to Brooklyn to catch a Cyclones game with our guy Jordan Grossman, who does social media for us at Locked On Mets on Twitter, and is also part of the show on most Fridays doing our farm report. So it was fitting to catch a minor league game with Jordan and go back and forth, just watching some of these prospects. And the one guy that I think we were both looking forward to seeing when we were originally talking about this game weeks ago was Jalen Palmer. But Jalen Palmer has gotten off to a dreadful start this season. For his benefit, I won't read off his numbers this year. They don't look good. I almost want to avoid even talking about what we saw on Saturday because he just looked completely lost out there. He struck out in his first 3 at-bats. In the 4th at-bat, he fell behind 1 and 2 and had a lazy pop-up or lazy line drive, I guess, if you want to call it. What do you call it in between of a pop-up and a line drive? A ball that's barely hit hard but doesn't get high enough to be considered a pop. Because that's what this liner was that Jalen Palmer got out on and, just narrowly, again, avoided that golden sombrero. He looked lost. And he was showing it, too. His body language is not good either. The guy that popped, though, that I want to talk about is Wilmer Reyes. this is someone that we're now going to be keyed in on for the rest of the season that could enter our top 20 potentially when it comes to Mets prospect who are Locked On Mets, because that's how good this guy looked. You should always pay attention, particularly in the lower levels of the minors, to who is getting the nod to be the shortstop, because generally that's going to be the best athlete on the team. And Jalen Palmer played some shortstop in low A last year, but I think the Mets envision Palmer as this super utility guy if he is able to make it to the show. And so I understand why they're putting him at third and second in the outfield and really mixing up his looks. Wilmer Reyes, though, looked like the best player on that team. He looked like he went 3 for 4 in this game. Could have just been one big day, but apparently, if you see the numbers lately, he's starting to get hot. He's starting to turn some heads, and he really did just jump out to us when we were there watching him. He had a home run, he had 2 RBIs, but he also played great defense in the field, and he carried himself with a certain level of swagger, like he belonged and like he was a player that has big league aspirations. So Wilmer Reyes, a name to watch for sure with the Brooklyn Cyclones. And also, I do want to just touch on the fan experience. What I have done outside of the technical difficulties, again, as I sit in a car, someone's going to come out here and yell at me because I'm honking my horn now, because I can't record in my room at 10 o'clock. I'm so frustrated right now. And I'm letting all the listeners hear it. But my experience has been great going to these games. And if you are living in the city, you got to go out and check the Cyclones. It's such, especially if you have kids, they have, in between inning entertainment every single inning, and they're bringing kids on the field to do different things. And, you have the roller coaster going behind the left field wall. It's just a cool place to watch a baseball game. It really is. And I think it's awesome that it's now a full season high A club. So you get to see some legitimate prospects. And, obviously Palmer's not off to a great start, but, he's going to get better. And there's a lot of guys right now, particularly on the pitching side in low A, who are really showing out that are going to be in high A probably by June. You're going to be able to see some really good arms out there. So definitely check out some Cyclones games. And then if you want to drive 3.5 hours or so from Brooklyn, check out the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. I'll tell you, it's an interesting place to be in Binghamton for sure. Very small town vibes going on. Very, there's a lot of these kind of dive bars and then little holes in the wall that you can certainly enjoy. But the game experience is awesome. It really is. Good environment to watch a ball game. And if you want to see, especially right now, the Binghamton Big Three of Brett Baty, Francisco Alvarez, and Ronny Mauricio, if you want to check them out, this is the time to do it, because who knows when Baty's going to get the call to AAA, or one of those other guys could get a call as well. And to see 3 of the top 5 prospects in the Mets system in one place, it just doesn't get better than that. And I know there was people before the game that got pictures with Brett Baty. Brett Baty was around. He was accessible. A lot of these guys were accessible because it is. They're playing in such a small town that it's hard for them not to be accessible. And, I spent $17 and I sat with my feet on the dugout and I got to listen to conversations the whole game from these guys. And you get to see them up close. I got to see Jonashui Fargas, a Mets legend, talking to Francisco Alvarez. And Alvarez has a very charismatic personality. He's like Lindor. The 2 things he has in common with him, the first name and the smile, because he's always smiling and cheesing out there. So it was just a cool experience in of itself. And then getting to the product and what we saw, Ronny Mauricio was unbelievable. And if you've been listening to this show, I'm not a huge Mauricio believer. He chases a lot of pitches. He is not a great defensive shortstop. He's made a lot of errors. I think long term, I think his fit is probably one of the corners, whether that's third base, left field, or right field, and he certainly has the arm to potentially be a right fielder. But then I watched him today. He didn't make a mistake at all. A clean game at shortstop. He made a really nice play in the hole where he was just a second short on getting that throw over as a guy who was really hustling down the line, so it's not even really his fault. Just beat it by half a step. But a really nice play in the hole to get to it, and a good strong throw to first, hit the first baseman in the chest. And then right after that, he turned a great double play ball too. So he sort of showcased everything, made a really good catch running out to the outfield. So defensively, I was impressed and thought, okay, well, maybe I could see it. Maybe he could stick at the position. But really offensively, this guy's huge, by the way, like a professional athlete's body. I think all of them, Baty, Alvarez, and Mauricio, you can say that. But for Mauricio, it's to a different level. He also carries himself with a certain swagger that's a little bit different. Got a ton of chains going on, some really nice glasses. Sort of just has that persona of I'm a stud, I'm a star. And I think when you're watching him in person, you start to believe it because the tools do they jump out to you. They just do. And I have a bunch of videos of these at bats, and unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wait till I get home to put it all together. I'm gonna do a breakdown on YouTube where you can watch these guys hit, and I'll kind of talk you through the at bats. But what you'll see is you see a guy who seems to maybe be figuring it out, and the one thing that he's certainly figuring it out is he is leaning into launch angle, and he's gonna be trying to lift everything, and he's gonna be swinging as hard as he can, and that's the way the game's going. And he's leaning in the right direction. He hits the ball as hard as anyone in the minors. So that is one thing that you just could not ignore. He hit 4 fly balls in this game, 4 at-bats. I mean, 1 got into the gap for a double, it's a line drive. He had a home run, and then he had, 2 flyouts. But every at-bat, he's looking to lift. The one thing I will say that is concerning is when he gets 2 strikes on him, I don't even know if he took like 1 pitch, and it was a pitch that was at his eyes. Otherwise, he's swinging. When he gets 2 strikes on him, he's going to be just firing away every single pitch. He's looking to hit. And you could say, well, he's trying to protect. But the problem with that is when he gets to the big league level, he falls behind 1-2 or even 0-2. I mean, he's just going to be toast because when you get to that elite level where pitchers really have the good swing and miss stuff, they'll just put him away. But in Double-A, he has enough bat-to-ball skills that he's able to just fight off a bunch of bad pitches and stay in at bats. And then ultimately he can try to do something with it. And one at bat, I think it was his last at bat of the day, he ends up falling behind and he fouls 1 or 2 off. And then he takes one that was low in the other batter's box and he turned on it, and it was almost like he just flicked his wrist. And with just his wrist strength alone, he drove it to the warning track. So that's the type of power this guy has. A ton of potential. I was really impressed with Ronny Mauricio. He changed my opinion on him a little bit. I not all the way. I still feel like I just caught him on a good day, but he definitely has earned a second look for me to look a little bit closer at him, and maybe not write him off as quickly as I have just based on some of the bad numbers I've seen. So that was the big takeaway from Binghamton. Other than that, I mean, Alvarez had a rough day. He takes hacks, I'll tell you that. He takes absolute hacks. But he does look like he's in a little bit of a slump. I'm sure he's going to find his way out of it. And Brett Baty had some of the best at-bats of the day. And the best one was in the first inning when he had a 15-pitch at-bat where he fouled off 8 consecutive pitches before grounding out. That was extremely impressive. So I think these are 3 guys that are going to impact this Mets team, if not this year, then next year. And I think that impact can come in multiple ways. It can be from getting promoted, and I think Baty right now is the favorite to get promoted this year. Mark Vientos has to turn things around a little bit offensively before he can kind of regain that status. I think Alvarez will be up next season, and I think Mauricio has a chance to be the big trade piece that gets you something. I think that's why he's staying at shortstop right now, and at some point, if the Mets are going to make a move at the deadline or next offseason, they're going to need a blue-chip prospect to move. You have Lindor locked up for a decade. You have Baty as your potential third baseman. I can see a Mauricio trade still, but look, if he keeps playing like this, he's going to really increase that value, and the Mets are going to be able to get a really nice return for him if they do ultimately decide to trade him. Anyway, that's going to be all for this car edition of Locked On Mets. I think the first time I've ever recorded in a car. Tomorrow, hopefully in my new hotel, I'll be allowed to record in the room and no one will call the front desk on me. And I'll get you another audio-only show for tomorrow, and on Wednesday I'll be at the game Tuesday night in Syracuse, so I'll be breaking down that. Then also a doubleheader the Mets have. They're about to play the Atlanta Braves. I didn't get to preview that series much today, so let me look real quick here at the pitching matchup. So it will be Max Fried versus Chris Bassett. That's a really good first game. And then I'll give you a full preview on tomorrow's show. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show, at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan, but we call him Sully. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to learn about everything Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.